I'm going to glue the fretboard onto the neck, and I put thin glue evenly as best I could on both parts, and then I'll just glue it on. So I turn the neck upside down, and I will glue it on a flat surface so it'll lay more flat than if I did it the other way up where it stood up. It might have a tendency to bend, I think, when I put the clamps on it. There's no truss rod. I don't really ever use a truss rod. I don't know. I just think that with the two pieces together, it laminates pretty strong. So this is how I do it. So I got this glued, my fretboard is glued to the neck, and before I glued it on, I actually angled it a little bit. Looks kind of cool. And what I'm going to do is basically take this belt sander, and I'm going to run this up against the edge here, and I'm going to sand it even with the neck, the fretboard with the neck. I got to be kind of careful, so I just be real patient. And then we'll go ahead, and as you can see, the neck's still pretty rough and beat up because I haven't really finished it off yet. I will sand it down with my palm sander once I get the binding on the neck down the sides there. So by just using my little palm sander and spending about 20 minutes, I'm able to really smooth out the neck here, the back of the neck. The heel. Although it's not 100% perfect, it's pretty good. It's got a nice feel to it. I'm going to put some binding around it now, but I still am thinking about probably we'll sand this a little more smoother around because you still feel some bumps in it. So I'll take my sandpaper out and I'll kind of cup it so it kind of gives it a nice feel as I do it up and back like this. So I'll probably do that later on. So I got this rounding bit like I used for the body. It's a small one. And I'm going to run it right along here and all the way down. I won't go too fast because sometimes it'll chip along the sides when I hit the crack here from the fret slots. So I go kind of slow, be real careful. Sometimes it cracks, I have to backfill it. So this is what I'll do to cut the cavity for the binding. So I've done the cavity on the headstock and on the fretboard, and as you can see here, I couldn't go all the way through because the base wouldn't let me. So I'm going to have to do this with a razor blade and a chisel, and just be real careful and do it by hand. As you can see, I've done my binding with the acetone. It's worked really good again. I'm surprised that it took me this long to figure out that acetone. All I had to do was go on YouTube and do research, and you find a lot of stuff there. Anyways, I was able to do the binding around it, and I had this wood filler, so I backfilled all the little crevices inside the inlays, and then I'll just sand it down so hopefully it'll look a lot better. You won't see any little marks. And I still got a lot of sanding and cleaning up to do. And that's it. So I cleaned up the neck a little bit. It looks pretty good. There's still, you know, a few little flaws here and there, but I'm not complaining. Still got to sand in some little spots that I had to patch up. So I'm about to do the wiring harness for the guitar. What I did here is I pre-drilled the holes, and I just made sure that they fit. So this one has, yeah, they all fit. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll take my original template, and then I'm going to flip it over, the whole guitar over. And I'll just mark the spots, and I'll make the holes into the cardboard, and then I'll do the wiring on the cardboard so it'll be in the correct position. So when I got my wiring harness diagram, I just go online and I just find it online. So in this particular one, I'm going to have a volume and a tone for each one, and a three-way switch. So it's pretty simple if you just follow the wires in the diagram. And here's my setup on the cardboard. So the wiring harness is now done. I know it looks like a little crazy mess, which it pretty much is, but I'll tidy it up with some tape when I put it in the guitar so it won't look as crazy. Best thing to do is always test to make sure it works. So I plugged it in to the amp, and I took a little screwdriver or anything with metal, and then I'll just hit it like this, and you can hear if it works. And then you can play with the switches to make sure the switches work as well. Rather than solder the pickups right away, I get me a pair of these, or I make a pair of these, and you can hook it up temporarily to make sure that it works. So I'm about to start to cut out the holes for the pickups. I just use this bit right here, and I'll just drop it right in there without cutting a hole, because that'll pretty much cut a hole. But I'll be real slow and safe and careful so it doesn't get away on me. And then in the corners here, all these corners, it's round. It should be okay. If not, I'll come back in with a little file or a Dremel tool and square them off if it needs to be. So after I just cut the holes, I just kind of test fit it to make sure it fits. It's a little leeway up and back, so in case I have to adjust it. So it came out pretty good. Doesn't matter if your holes are real square, because you're gonna have bezels around it. So when you put that in, the bezel covers up any imperfections around the hole. So if you think you can get away with not doing any hand sanding, you're wrong. Got to do a lot of this hand sanding after when I put the glue on. You get a little dripping, and I'm just going to smooth out the edges right around here. There's a lot of this hand sanding. I did used to use a palm sander, but around the side it's real tough because sometimes you'll screw it up when you do it with a palm sander. So I would recommend doing it with your hand. Takes a little longer, but it'll be a little better job, or a lot better job. I now completed the back panel of the guitar, and I'll just have to glue it on. So before I do that, on this guitar I'm going to actually put all the knobs, put all the pots, all the wiring before I paint it and before I glue on the back. It'll be a lot easier than trying to install it afterwards. So I'm going to be putting on a Bigsby on the tailpiece. So I drilled a hole for my ground wire to the Bigsby. So you can see I did the wiring and I kind of taped it up to make it cleaner so it doesn't bounce around as much. So now I will hook up my pickup with my clips and test it out to make sure that it's still working, no loose wires. So as you can hear, that test passed so far. Now I'll go and do it to the other pickup. This happens to be the bridge, and I'll hook one up to the neck, and we'll see how that sounds. I'm putting the back cover on now, and I just glued up the edges here. So now I'm going to cut the holes for the tuners to be put in, and just use my little drill press here, and I marked the spots the way I wanted it. I usually put wood underneath it because you can see a little chipping a little bit, but that'll be covered up from the tuners anyways. So it'll be sanded down.